Thanks, I made it. And there are many reasons why a creator may be hesitant to take credit for their own work. So let's get into it. I've met creators in the past who have had reservations about taking credit for their own work, and more specifically, telling people they are the artist behind the garments they make. And I believe this stems from a number of fears. So let's get into those. So let's talk about confidence and/or the lack thereof. The lack of confidence in your art can affect how proudly you speak of it. Having a lack of confidence in your artwork is easy if you feel like you haven't achieved anything, or if you feel that you've produced poor quality artwork. Everybody starts at the beginning when it comes to a new craft, and nobody is just born with talent. Talent simply doesn't exist. Practice, understanding, and dedication is the perfect recipe for achieving great things. To become an expert at anything, it takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Considering a 5-day work week, you'd have to spend at minimum 4 hours a day for approximately 10 years to become an expert at something. So make a list or document your artwork by taking pictures of the art that you've already created. Every piece of art is an achievement in and of itself. So set goals. They don't have to be huge, overwhelming goals, but setting goals is important, and being goal-oriented is important. Aim for several small achievements. Achievements that you can tick off a list to help you gain confidence in your ability to get stuff done. And ultimately, it's about you and your belief in yourself, regardless of what anyone else thinks. It's extremely easy to do, but a confident artist doesn't compare themselves to others, but instead reminds themselves of their achievements and remembers the goals they've set for themselves and continues to work towards their dreams. So let's talk about when people ridicule your artwork. So ridicule. So what really is it, and what is my experience with it? When I was a kid, there were certain status symbols that indicated whether or not your family was well off. Having the latest trendy clothes, having gone to the orthodontist to have braces put on your teeth, shopping at thrift stores, or wearing hand-me-downs was something that you never let your peers know that you did. And if you didn't have these status symbols, they then thought it was okay to lay on the ridicule fiak. Well, thankfully, that trivial snobbery is in the past, or at least it should be. These days, people are doing a 180 when it comes to being environmentally friendly. Recycling, reducing, and reusing are all the rage. So how does this relate to people ridiculing your artwork? Well, I've had some not so great unsolicited encounters with people who think it's okay to criticize my clothing, which is also my artwork. Unfortunately, we just have to learn how to handle people's opinions, judgments, feedbacks, comments, and learn how not to take them personally, and show them how little power they really have over you. Slap your knee and really exaggerate how funny you think they are. Say something like, "That's a new one," or "That's the funniest thing I've heard all day," or simply, "That's enough," or "Quit being rude" are all good things to say. Feedback or constructive criticism, on the other hand, are good ways to be able to improve your work. So let's talk about jealousy or envy when it comes to your artwork or being a successful artist. Envy is when you want something that someone else has. And envy can also be a destructive emotion, both mentally and physically. Envious people tend to feel hostile, resentful, angry, or irritable. Envy is also related to depression, anxiety, and the development of prejudice and unhappiness. And not at all surprisingly, these mental states can have an effect on one's health. Jealousy is when someone feels threatened, is insecure, or feels that something or someone may be taken away from them. Whether their remarks stem from envy or jealousy, there are several ways you can deal with them. Empathize with them. Understanding and sharing their feelings can sometimes soothe someone's ruffled feathers. Take their hateful comments with a grain of salt. Smile back at them, or kill them with kindness. Or you can take them by surprise and compliment their appearance. If the person has any conscience at all, it will become very difficult for them to continue to ridicule you. And if their jealousy of you continues, just limit your interactions with them, or remove them from your life altogether. If no matter what you do never satisfies them, then you may have to remove them from your life altogether. And try not to think of it as giving up or quitting on them. Purging people from your life is sometimes necessary, and it's definitely necessary for your mental health. And after all, it's not you who needs to change their way of thinking. It's them. It isn't perfect, but I'm on many different Facebook groups about sewing. And people are, of course, invited to share their projects or troubleshoot something they've working on, you know, stuff like that. Or where they can proudly display, and hopefully with very minimal ridicule, their finished artwork or project, no matter their skill level. But every time I see a post, it usually starts out with, "It's not perfect, but." And I can't tell you how many times I have seen that. Now, I'm totally fine with someone who is a beginner or isn't a professional, because I certainly am not. But we all have to start somewhere. But I also think that people get caught up trying to achieve an impossible degree of perfectionism. But can perfectionism really be achieved? Perfectionism is often seen as a positive trait, a trait that increases one's chance of success, but can lead to self-defeating thoughts. Reasons I might be hesitant to tell people I make my own clothes. And for me, this depends on my plans. What errands that I need to accomplish for the day. If I'm pressured for time and don't feel like getting into a lengthy conversation about why I make my own clothes, I typically won't say much other than to thank them for their compliment if they've paid me one, or I won't leave a sentence with an open-ended sort of opportunity for conversation, or I will deliver them back a compliment in return and then just be on my way. Story time. So this is how the scene played out as I was standing in the buffet line at a restaurant, wearing a bright yellow, sunny, lemon-printed retro dress that I had created some time ago. A woman walks up to me and says, "I love your dress." Now, I typically always thank people when they pay me a compliment because that's just good manners. And after I had done so, I proceeded to tell her that I had made it. But even before I could utter my gratitude at the compliment she had paid me, she interjects with, "Does it have pockets?" I smile at her for the briefest of seconds, wondering if she was perfectly serious, or if she was joking around like a popular meme that had been floating around online at the time. But I couldn't tell because of her serious demeanor. So I determined her question was serious, and so I replied with, "No, I didn't manage to make this one with pockets, although I should have." Her eyes widen with shock, and she says, "You made that?" She goes on to relate to me that her grandmother knew how to sew and wished that she had learned. So while in actuality the conversation really wasn't all that long, other times people can get pretty windy when it comes to a subject that they are passionate about. And I'm guilty of that as well. I've also had numerous conversations very similar to this one, ones even more in depth, deeper in emotion. But never have I been ridiculed or insulted by the way that I dress. What to do if someone sneers at your handmade garments. And please take my advice with a grain of salt. There are several options as to how you can reply, and the one you choose is of course up to you. I have arranged these rebuttals in such a way that will reflect upon your character depending on which one you choose. And I fully admit that I have said some of the lesser character developing options. The first one is just ignore them and walk away. Yes, I realize that one isn't very much fun, and simply don't learn a lesson when it comes to their behavior. You can also approach them with the superior quality and a one-of-a-kind design. Highlight what appeals to you about making your own clothing. Explain to them it's that certain degree of superior quality. Being able to customize the fit to your unique shape. That extra special artisan's touch. And also knowing that you are the creator behind the design and that it's one of a kind. Because I mean, really, who wants to dress like sheep? Who wants to dress like everyone else? I don't. You could also go with questions fired. This option is for if you're in a bit of a spicy mood. Questions such as, what's wrong with making my own clothing? Or why do you make that sound like a bad thing? Or why shouldn't I be proud of making my own clothing? These questions can sometimes put people on the spot, making them hesitant to ask anything more. So there's also one more option. It's called tit for tat. When I'm in a sassy mood and the person may have been particularly snotty, I may reply with something like, oh yes, gives them a slow raised eyebrow once over. You're certainly into the lack of personality, poor quality, and bad for the environment fast fashion, aren't you? So while this reply isn't terrible advice, it certainly does relate to them that, at least in your mind, they are doing something wrong. But it does also unnecessarily lower yourself to their level. At the very least, nobody should be questioning why you make your own clothing, and nor should you ever feel as though you have to defend your own style to anyone else. Fashion is an expression of art as well as self-expression. Fashion can make us feel empowered and more in touch with our inner self, and can make us feel more confident in the way in which we present ourselves, especially if our clothing authentically represents our personality, identity, and mood. If you feel like sticking around or just want to see what other adventures I get up to, please consider subscribing. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. About sewing. Thank you, phone. A positive trait. Somebody is hot rodding it around here, Jesus. On like a four-wheeler. Perfectionism is often seen as a positive trait. Really? And now the train is going by. But can lead to self-defeating thoughts. Train. Great. But can lead to... They're doing that on purpose, aren't they? There was a big buck. Ugh, my stomach. It's like 90 degrees out here right now, and like my skin is crawling with bug feel. Those little sprinkly little legs.